exists only in being acknowledged. In the French tradition, they refer to this as le regard, the look. We have elements of that still in our own culture when we talk about the male gaze, for example. Right? I see that as part of that tradition, right? We need to be recognized by others, right? And by the way, this is a bit ambiguous on purpose. So on the one hand, we're talking about the self communicating with itself. So me thinking about me, should I eat that candy bar? I like Snickers, I'm going to have it. And then I think to myself, but wait a minute, it's probably not good for me. Probably shouldn't eat that candy bar. In fact, I imagine I have the blue angel and the red angel, and the blue angel says, oh, don't eat the candy bar. It's not good for you. And the red angel says, oh, go ahead. You've eaten thousands of them. It's not going to make any difference. Right? And so, of course, they keep arguing with one another until the red angel goes, pops the other one. And then I'm free to eat the candy bar. I eat the candy bar. So I have a war within myself. And I'm just talking about a candy bar, but that's any of the times you're trying to decide about something. Theoretically, you can imagine yourself as having a discussion inside of your brain over what you should do. And who are the sides in this conversation, right? But we also have interactions with other consciousnesses. So I'm thinking that you have your own consciousness. And I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. We're having an interplay of forces, so to speak, between the two of us. So in that case, it exists for another. That is, it exists only in being acknowledged. The notion of this, its unity in its duplication, embraces many and varied meanings. Its moments then must be, on the one hand, be held strictly apart. So if I'm going to understand what's going on here, I have to think, well, what's happening on this side of this discussion in my mind, or in this conversation between two people, or between the assembly and all the people in the audience. Of course, you've got the discussions going on between the assembly members. The assembly has a self-consciousness interacting with all of the people. Anchorage interacting with the state. All the states interacting through Congress. Look at all the multiple levels, multiple tiers of interactions that are going on between consciousnesses, right? Which is why in the test I ask, Kant gives us psychology, Hegel gives us sociology, people in groups. How do people in groups react to other groups, right? Because what we're looking at is the self-consciousness of the group interacting, right? So the twofold significance of the distinct moments has in the nature of self-consciousness to be finite, to be infinite rather. And what I interpret that, when you walk into the bathroom where there's a mirror on each side of the room, so you can see yourself looking almost at an infinite sequence, right? Because you see yourself and yourself and yourself and yourself and yourself, right? So the nature of this is recursion. Remember, Noam Chomsky, we have that ability to be recursive, and so self-consciousness is an infinite experience. There's as many selves that you want to think about, you've got, right? But the twofold significance of the distinct moments has in the nature of self-consciousness to be infinite, or directly the opposite of the determinateness in which it is posited. This gives us an infinite ability. The detailed exposition of the notion of the spiritual unity in its duplication will present us with the process of recognition. So self-consciousness is faced by another self-consciousness. It has come out of itself, because while I'm trying to understand the other person, my concentration isn't on myself, it's on the other person. So it's come out of itself. This has a twofold significance. First, it has lost itself, for it finds itself as an other being. Secondly, in doing so, it has superseded the other, for it does not see the other as an essential being, but in the other sees its own self. So when I'm trying to imagine what you're thinking, I've superseded the real you. I'm imposing my thinking of what you're thinking on my conscious understanding of who you are. Right? That's how I'm reading this. By the way, notice this kind of writing is very different than the typical kind of writing you see in philosophy up to this point. This is almost like an active novel of what's going on moment by moment. And that makes it difficult for a lot of people to try to figure out what the heck is he talking about, right? But if you think about him as describing these kinds of interactions, it must supersede this otherness of itself. This is the supersession of the first ambiguity and is therefore itself a second ambiguity. First, it must proceed to supersede the other independent being in order thereby to become certain of itself as the essential being. Secondly, in so doing, it proceeds to supersede its own self, for this other is itself. And it keeps going back and forth. Back and forth. Now, this movement of self-consciousness in relation to another self-consciousness has in this way been represented as the action of one. But notice, the other person is doing the same thing. In fact, as many as there are persons, right? So notice how complex this gets immediately, right? And so it keeps on moving. And this is a movement, the play of forces, he calls it, but repeated now in consciousness. And notice that this is the way we perceive phenomena, this is the way we perceive everything through this constant dialectical process, right? So it's a process. So it's not like we can find a specific object that is what it is and not another thing. Oh, wait a minute, because immediately I can think of it as still another thing. I can think of it all these other categories that I break a thing down to into its parts, or its functions, or its relationships, etc. So, of course, the philosophers from the past haven't been able to figure this stuff out. It's been so much more complex all along. Only if you start thinking of it in this complex way, through this process of recognition, of the duplicating of self-consciousness, and its oneness appears to self-consciousness. By the way, lordship and bondage, or however you translate that, master and slave, some translations call this master and slave. In the dialogue in my own brain over whether I should eat the candy bar or not, the blue angel was trying to keep me from eating it. The red angel was convincing me it was fine. In that case, the red angel won, became the master over the other one. But of course, between different individuals, self-consciousnesses, one might dominate the other one. So you can apply this master slave relationship and that kind of thing. Perfect example right now, and I asked you the question about the Weltgeist on a white horse. Who would you say is the Weltgeist today? And how does that Weltgeist dominate other Geists?
Do you want me to use the T word?
I was avoiding the T word, but I thought I was setting it up so it was obvious I meant the T word.
Oh, that's why I didn't say it.
You can talk about President Trump. It's a free country, or it used to be.
I'll talk about Taylor Swift. What are you talking about?
Taylor Swift? Tay-Tay?
Oh boy.
You can make an argument for either one of those.
Just shake it off.
Trying.
That hurts though. I can't do what she does. I have a friend though that says part of the problem is she doesn't have any hips. I'm like, what?
Why she doesn't hurt herself.
All right. Well, I've only got a couple minutes here. Is this fun? Well, the neat thing, and why this piece here, by the way, is considered literature, is because even though the master becomes the master of the slave, it turns out that once doing so, the master is totally dependent on the slave doing everything. In other words, he's actually dependent on the slave, and not the other way around, because the slave does it. That's considered irony, right? So that's kind of cool. He was supposedly funny, not as funny as Jesus, but pretty funny nonetheless. So, next class we're going to go on to John Stuart Mill, and I've always presented John Stuart Mill as the successor, as one of the successors to Hegel. It was very infuriating this last couple of days when I asked Groke about that, and Groke came up and told me, no, you're wrong. Hegel was not an influence on Mill. Kant even wasn't that much of an influence on John Stuart Mill, but it was definitely David Hume and Jeremy Bentham and things of that sort. So I'm having an argument with Groke right now over all of that.
Well, if it helps, they also said Jeremy Bentham and were influenced on my Gronk. So
On who?
on the Gronk. I used
You used it too. Uh-huh. Yeah, so Groke is against me in this. Infuriating. Plus Joseph's mad at me right now because he's a fan of Alan Watts.
quality over quantity. Is that what we're talking about on Wednesday?
That is one of the issues of utility, because
Oh, I love your question about the coronavirus.
my question about what?
The utilitarianism and how
This is fun.
in relation to the coronavirus.
I don't know if I did a good job.
What do you think they would do?
Yeah, I just like.
We're dealing with it in a very brief. I mean, I had the opportunity to read the whole book, back then as a kid, and other books besides that actually helped. So, but that was very helpful for me back then. And I'm still a Hegelian. That's nice
Thank
meeting you.
Nice meeting
I hope
you.
I didn't
Look at your popularity today.
bore you completely.
No, it was
but-
interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
Sure. So, I was gonna ask
You're gonna take a
you,
class.
when is everything due? Because I've
Specify
been
homework
like,
online.
I'm trying to make sure that I have
Yeah,
enough
well-
time to do it all, give myself time, and make sure that I'm not late. Because,
Oh, you're not late, because I don't turn in grades until
You
all
said
at
there's
once.
no such thing as late until the end of the semester.
No, I know, but the
So,
end of the
yeah.
semester is coming up fast.
It is.
December.
We've got a little, what, 3 weeks?
So
4 weeks?
Looks like the 13th of
5
December.
13th of December. Roger that. Sounds good. Thank you, Professor. Then we have to write papers.
I signed in as Andorra. Who the heck is Andorra?
Maybe I have to write that.
You have to answer
No.
the questions on Dan
Is that what that is?
And then your final is one of the last.
Okay, so answer 3
But I don't know
questions.
about the other one.
No wonder the computer gave me so much trouble. I wasn't signed in as me.